Maegavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I'm Arachír Galudirithon, head of Divide and Conquer, and welcome to the Ered Luin faction overview video. Ered Luin being the third and final dwarven faction within the game, the others of course being Khazad-dûm in Khazad-dûm, and Erebor housed in Erebor. We are the western portion. If you played vanilla 3rd Age Total War, which I strongly recommend, the dwarven faction are one. And this is just the western contingent of the overall dwarven faction, whereas in DAC they are split apart. No other announcements to make, so we can dive straight in. How does the game look at the beginning for the dwarves? Well, you can already see you only have 3 regions. Thorin's Halls being your capital and largest city, Gehûdoll just being in the foothills of the mountains there, and then e-Hûdoll in the north. That being a castle, that being a town, and Thorin's Halls also being your capital but a large city, or a huge city. And this is all you start with. In terms of armies, you've not got anything particularly strong. A couple of Ered Luin warriors there. Some forgers and more forgers again. Your clan lord is Gore, and the clan herald, I think is the faction heir, is Grain. And Nar is also with you. You saw there as well, you do have some agents, a diplomat just outside Thorin's Halls. Now, in terms of rebel expansion, unlike the past 2 videos, you actually have options as playing as the dwarves. To your east, there's the small village just there. There's Ostgelon on the river there, Kadaskalainen to the southeast. Sorry. There's 2 regions here, encompassing the land of Foreshell, before you reach Angmar in the east. So all of your options are east, as all the lands to the north, as you can see from the encompassing picture down there, are already held by either the elves at Forlinden or yourselves with Ered Luin. There did used to be a small village in the backdrop here, but it has been removed. And so the islands out there now just belong to Forlinden, and the small village has been taken away. So all there is are the elves straight away, and then your 3 provinces. So you're going to have to head east to take any rebel regions. And that of course brings us on to your neighbours. Now of course geographically you should all know that to your south is the Bay of Linden, or the Gulf of Lune. Mithlond is just on the northern side, Londartheren is on the southern side, Harlinden and Forlinden, and with the cities of Harlond and Forlond, are there as well. And that's the elves of Linden. Slightly further to the southeast are the lands of Bree, this being the Shire here, encompassed with this sort of bracket look with the hills on either side. This is the Shire here, Bree being on the small hillock just there. And then even further east, if you do meet them, are obviously the Dunedain out of Amun Sul and the recaptured Anuminas and Fornost. And they're likely to be the 3 factions you'll spend most of the time around. Of course, none of those are particularly aggressive towards you, although you are not allied to any of them. So you do have the opportunity, if you wish to, playing as the Dwarves of Ered Luin, to attack anyone you want, as your only allies are your fellow dwarves far away in the eastern side of the map. However, your relations with Linden are very, very good, and they're likely to ask for an alliance almost straight away. So do bear that in mind. Your enemies are of course the Misty Mountains and Angmar. Angmar being your main and chief adversary for most of the game. Alternatively, you can try and push through Linden somehow, be it through peace or war, and arrive at Ennard Whitelands and try and take them yourself. And those are all of your neighbours and all of your surrounding enemies and allies. In terms of economy, dwarves, being dwarves, have one of the best economies in the game. It's very easy for the dwarves to make money. This is because from the mines they get mines slightly earlier. They get an appreciable bonus from mines. I think they get mines slightly earlier. Either way, they also get quite a few ancillaries related to mines, so the dwarves get a lot more money out of mines than many do. Additionally, being dwarves, you start in the mountainous regions, and almost all mountain regions within this game have a wealth of resources for mining. So the mines that you can build in Thorin's Halls, e-Hûdoll and Gehûdoll are all going to bring you a lot of money. So you can get a lot of money from that. Additionally, Thorin's Halls is already a huge city, so it's going to help you out immensely in terms of money. It's going to already feed you with quite a bit of money, so that's always an advantage. And other than that, despite that though, the dwarven units do cost quite a lot of money. So the amount of money you can make is offset by the fact that you have a reasonably expensive army. Being dwarves, you don't have any construction restrictions. You can build as many castles up to the highest level as you wish, and as many cities up to the highest level as you wish. So there's no restrictions at all. Of course, you can't build a stables of any kind, so do factor that in. Your only access to cavalry is through mercenary cavalry available in the lands of Bree and the heartlands of Eriador, where you can get some merchant cavalry. Other than that, you don't get any cavalry. And the guilds that you can see are Warriors Guild and Masons Guild. The Masons Guild making all buildings cheaper, and the Warriors Guild improving your melee weapon bonus and then experience bonus. Or for you it's called an Axesmith and a Durin's Forge Hall, but you don't get the third level. You also will notice that you're one of the few factions that get banks. So economy wise and construction wise, that is a building that very few factions get, and it greatly increases your income. Now unfortunately the script section for Ered Luin is one of the quickest to talk about because there are no scripts at all. There are no unique scripts for Ered Luin whatsoever. We're hoping to bring some in, but time and manpower will depend on that. So the only thing to talk about here is your garrison, which, as you might imagine, you get in Thorin's Halls and Fahamgathol, and I believe that is it. I don't think Gahuznar has a garrison at this time, as I'm fairly certain that the province was an amalgam of two other provinces. So I'm not sure that that gets a garrison, but you'll certainly get one in Thorin's Halls and Fahamgathol. And then, of course, you'll get one in Erebor and the Iron Hills, if you ever make it over there. Otherwise, you'll never get a garrison in any heartlands of anyone else, and you'll have to upgrade any interim towns or intermediary towns between heartlands to get garrisons there. Eriador is not a land with spare settlements going. Almost all settlements within Eriador are assigned to somebody's homeland, so you're very unlikely to get a garrison at all as the dwarves. Now in terms of tips and difficulty, again this is a faction which is not very hard. Should you wish it, you can sit with your 3 regions, take a few other border ones here, and then just defend against Angmar whilst you build up your economy, and then you can just sweep them away. As soon as Angmar are defeated, there are no immediate threats to your army. And indeed, in the early game, with Northern Dunedain and Bree soaking up most of Angmar's attention, you'll find you'll have no immediate threat in the early game anyway. However, it should be noted that Angmar will overpower the Northern Dunedain and Bree if you do not step in. So it's up to you how merciless or how merciful you wish to be on the free peoples of Eriador. Right, and that's the campaign side, I'm afraid. Not very much to say. Oh, I can just show you the unique stat models though, because they do have them. That is what your faction leader looks like. Let's see if our general can walk all the way over here. That is what a generic general looks like, and that is what your captain looks like. Just so that you know. So you can always find your faction leader as he is in red and gold, whereas your generals are in blue and gold, with blue being more of the prevalent colour there. But right, that's the faction side done. Oh, I can't load it from there, can you? So we'll have a look at their units. This video will probably be one of the shortest because Ered Luin don't get very many units anyway. There's very little to talk about on the campaign, and 3 of their units have already been covered in the Erebor overview video. So some of their units, I will just show you that they can train them, but I won't talk about them because they've already been covered. Needless to say, in the early game, Ered Luin are essentially a clone of Erebor, but with different look. But then they do get some variations as time goes on. I've not included the siege equipment because there's no real need, but I will say before we go in that, of course, if you're having trouble with the fact that you don't get any cavalry, you have to rely on your siege equipment. And it's not just that you get siege equipment earlier and it's cheaper and it's stronger, it's that you get grape shot. You must remember this. You must remember to use your grape shot. Grape shot is absolutely destructively, it's overpowered in its destructive capabilities. Only the dwarves get it, and it can absolutely ruin enemy units, being far more deadly than a cavalry charge ever can be. So use your artillery wisely is the suggestion for the dwarves. Right, your base units: forgers, warriors, orc hunters. Where are the orc hunters? Mountain scouts and travellers. Line them all up. The travellers I have done in the Erebor video, but I will just highlighting that they're here as well. So the 4 units, in fact, that have already been done in other videos. Right, in the next tier we go swords, pikes, yep. So guardians, swords, pikes, I think that's it. Leaving Azagal, Golden Hammer Guard, your nobles, Bronze Guard, and then the 3 that I've already covered as the Ubers. Oh, Bronze Guard aren't actually that good, they're more this tier. Needless to say, I've never played as Ered Luin, and their stats are entirely based essentially off of Erebor, so they are basically, as I've already mentioned, they are essentially just a clone of Erebor with a different look. Although the different look is to be commended, they do look very good. Do note that Ered Luin also get the armour seen in the Hobbit movies for the dwarves, but you have to upgrade your units to get that look. The Hammers of Gundabad, Guards of Khazad-dûm, Sons of the Fallen, and Dwarven Travellers have all been done in the Erebor video, so I will not cover them at all in this video. So the base Ered Luin units will be all this video covers. So let's dive straight in. Your first unit are the Forgers. These are the equivalent of the Miners from Ered Luin. Only real difference is they're slightly more blue, which is the theme running through the Blue Mountain Dwarves, and they have hammers instead of pickaxes. But otherwise they're very stat similar. Pretty good attack for a militia unit, defense of 9, which is nothing to scoff at. And they, like all dwarves, have very good morale for their tier, and almost all dwarves also have excellent stamina. So they really are warriors to their core, and they will fight for a very long time. High morale and excellent stamina, keeping them going. As you can also imagine, the dwarven defense stat is almost solely made up of armor, so any unit that is armor piercing should be of high priority to bring down, for they will be the ones who can actually do damage against you. So do keep that in mind. Armor piercing enemies are not your friend. But anyway, so there's the Forgers. They're your first unit. Not very expensive, don't cost very much, very readily available, but not the most amazing unit, but they are certainly better than other militia units. Next up are the Warriors, and your first mainstream battle unit. Again, copies of the Erebor Warrior unit, but obviously you can see different look, different aesthetics. But again, excellent stamina, very good morale, average morale response. All dwarves have a bonus in snow and a negative in desert, but you should see that they have there's no bonus nor negative effect from fighting in forest or grassland. The warriors have a 14 defense, half of that being in their armor, so again watch out armor piercing. A good attack for an early tier unit, and a charge of 3, which is nothing too amazing. The dwarves don't have a particularly good charge because they're not very fast. They can't get very much momentum behind them, so charging is not particularly their strong point. Prolonged melee are where the dwarves shine. That's what they're designed for, much as Gimli says. Oh, quite the reverse of what he says related to sprinters, actually. Sorry. When it comes to fighting, they are designed for long time sprinting. Right. The first tier as well, where you'll find your 2 and only archer units. Obviously you do get Dwarven Travellers. They're covered in the Erebor video, but they have the restriction that they're only available in forest and grassland, I believe. Not sure why it doesn't say it on there. So they're not that readily available. They're a bit rarer, whereas these 2 are available everywhere. And the Orc Hunters are the axe throwers. And they just throw their axes, as you might imagine. They're essentially javelin men. Similar again, excellent stamina, good morale, very good. They have a 19 defense, so they are very, very good. To make up for the fact that you don't really get any archers as Ered Luin, as you can see, no crossbowmen to speak of. The Orc Hunters are very proficient in melee, so they can do a lot of damage with their axes in the initial throw, and then they will hold out for a long time. They've got better defense and attack than the Ered Luin warriors. So the Orc Hunters are really they're a staple troop of Ered Luin. And that, as I say, has been done to counter the fact you don't get any crossbowmen or anything like that. So your ranged units are stronger to make up for that. The Scouts are your first and dedicated archer unit that's available everywhere, and only dedicated archer unit. Now their melee is they're more akin to warriors in their defense stats. So they will last a while in melee, but they're not going to win any awards in melee. But their defense is 10, which is quite good, but quite militia dwarven militia stats, as you saw with the forgers. And otherwise, again, the same features as most dwarves: good morale, average morale response, even in their early tier, which is very, very good. And again, snow and desert and armor class being where they shine. Right, the next tier, and I believe after the barracks event, the Guardians of Belegost are AOR, so they're not available everywhere. But I'm fairly certain that the other three are. Let's just have a double check, as far as I can tell. So we'll start with the Guardians. As I say, these are AOR. They're only available in your homeland regions and possibly a few others outside of that as well. But essentially they're only available in the actual Blue Mountains, the geographical location. They are quite good, very aggressive, high charge, high attack, but their defense is not that amazing. They don't have a shield and they have a high defense skill, so they are quite susceptible to arrow fire, so do keep them away from arrow fire. But otherwise, again, the same stats as all dwarves. This time we're up in the excellent morale tier. These guys get a bonus against camels, wargs and oliphants, and they are effective against armor. So they're a really dedicated killer. They're very, very good at bringing down really anything. But they won't last that long against arrows, so do bear that in mind. Also in this tier are your Bronze Guard, who are essentially just the Dwarven Halberben, but they have a unique name and a unique description. So they have a 20 defense, which is very good for a middle tier, very good for a dwarf. Bear in mind, most factions 20 total defense is their elites, and this is only your middle tier. Their attack is 8, charge bonus of 6. Given the fact that they will attack with either the halberd or the pike animation, that makes them beasts. They will be really strong in combat. Couple this with the fact that they're effective against armor, and the standard excellent stamina and excellent morale means that these guys will take a long time to die. So whereas the Guardians of Belegost will kill a lot of enemies, the Bronze Guard will kill a lot of enemies and will survive for a very long time. So you get the best of both worlds. But of course, do bear in mind that all Dwarven units are very expensive, so it all comes at a cost. Also in this middle tier are the Swordmen. These are a new unit unique to 0.5, but as we're on 0.52 now, you should all be playing with them by now. They were added in this middle tier to give the Dwarves an extra unit, because they were quite low on the ground, Ered Luin, and they still are, as you can see. They're just a standard middle tier sword unit, so good attack but not a very good charge, and a solid defense to keep them alive. But they're essentially the main line middle tier units. So you'll have the Ered Luin swords forming the bulk of the line. You'll have a few Bronze Guard dotted in between to hold key choke points, and the Guardians of Belegost will do the heavy lifting damage on the flanks with their high morale. Again, do watch out for the armor. Armor piercing will shred your armies because you rely so heavily on your armor. And the Ered Luin pikes, finally. The pike unit for Ered Luin, very similar to the Vault Wardens of Erebor, but with the blue theme. Slightly lower defense of 16 instead of 20, but again a high attack and a good charge for a pike unit as well. So these are aggressive pikes more than defensive pikes. Obviously everybody knows that pikes are better on the attack than the defense anyway, or at least you should now with the number of times I've told you. But never has it been more true than with the Ered Luin pikes, with their high attack and high charge. Couple that as well again with excellent stamina and excellent morale. They're going to be fighting for a long time, taking a lot of enemies with them. But do be cautious, 16 is not amazing. 16 is not for a Dwarven unit, 16 is actually quite low. So you might find that these guys will die with the same sort of rate as your early tier units. Because the units around them all have 22, 20 and higher defenses. Apart from, of course, the Guardians. Right, Ered Luin's dedicated elites are the Azagald's Tomb Protectors, the Golden Hammer Guard, and the Ered Luin Nobles. Azagal was a Dwarven king who fought in I want to say the Nerneath Anoadiad, but it may not be that one. The Battle of Unnumbered Tears. He died, but he severely wounded the dragon Glaurung, I believe, I want to say. Surely the description will tell us that. Glaurung, yes. High five yourself, everyone. He was carried away in high honour by his dwarven brethren, and all around them, even the enemy orcs, were in awe at the strength of Azagal and his dwarves, and as such, these men take his name and are the protectors of his tomb. or that is of course now just a namesake, as his tomb and the town that it was housed in have all been destroyed, but they keep the name and they keep the honour, and in tradition of that they are beasts. They're effective against armour, they frighten nearby enemy infantry, they have a 12 attack to go off on anyway, they have a 6 charge and a 28 defence. They are possibly Ered Luin's best unit, with the Golden Hammer Guard coming in close second, being more defensive. But Azaghald's Tomb Protectors are incredibly strong. However, I'm fairly certain that they have some sort of AOR restriction, so I don't think they're available everywhere. But I could be wrong because it doesn't say it here, and I've kept most of these up to date. So that's the only bit of misinformation I've got for you, I'm afraid. As you can see, they have locked morale with an impetuous morale response, and they get a bonus against all beasts. So Beasts of Mordor, Oliphants, Sauron, Balrog, and Ents. They don't get a bonus against normal cavalry, but they do against beasts. The locked and unwavering morale means that not only will these be the last dwarves standing on the field, they will also take a long time before they actually start fearing the enemy. Because whilst a unit that has locked morale will never run, they will still suffer attack and defense penalties when their morale is very, very low. Whereas these have such a high morale that they're unlikely to reach that point anyway. Supporting them are the Golden Hammer Guard. These are your mainstream elites. These are the equivalent of the Iron Guard for Erebor. They can make shield walls, can make themselves defensive. They're again effective against armor, which is a trait of quite a few Ered Luin units. They're an anti-armor as well as an armor faction. Their defense is 30, so the highest defense so far of your mainstream units. Of course, the Golden Hammer, the Guards of Khazad-dûm, Sons of the Fallen, Hammer Guard, Hammers of Gundabad have similar defenses. But Golden Hammer Guard are the highest of your mainstream units, 30 defense. Again, do watch out because 16 of that is armor, so they're going to take more damage from armor-piercing enemies. They also have excellent stamina, as all the dwarves have, and again, unwavering morale with it being locked. Their morale response is only good though, whereas Azaghald's is impetuous. So these units really will shine as your greatest on the field. Interesting tidbit, if you are curious, that Azaghald's Tomb Protectors used to look like this, but unfortunately, given the fact that they have a ridiculous defense stat and very high attack stat, the chainmail and two hammer berserker style look didn't really fit, whereas the heavy axe wielding heavy armor did. So the units were swapped around. Finally, we'll take a look at the stats of your nobles. Obviously, there's only 39 of them, so they're not going to be amazing, but they still will be strong. 28 defense, which is obviously good for dwarves, good for anyone. Dwarves having normally higher defense than most others factions. Their attack is 9, which is nothing amazing with the other stats that we've seen, but it is still very high. Charge is not very good again, which is a trait of dwarves, as I've mentioned. They are also effective against armor, so all 3 of your elites are effective against armor, so armor should never be a problem when you're playing as Ered Luin. If there's one thing you can do, it is tear through the pretenders' armor from other factions. So this will mean that if you are fighting Angmar in the late game, should it get to that, their heavily armoured Witch Realm units will not be a threat to you. And you will also be very adept at bringing down trolls, so do keep that in mind. Again, they have unwavering morale and locked morale, so if you're fighting on a battle and you want your general to flee, you will always have to manually tell him to flee. Which will mean that you can't hope that he will choose to flee, because he will never ever flee. So you might lose a few generals to that, but with your ridiculously strong units supporting you, you should be fine. And as I say, the 3 units that you get that I've covered in the Erebor video are the Hammers of Gundabad, who are available in Gundabad and Gundabad only. The Guards of Khazad-dûm, only available in Khazad-dûm. You will have to backstab your own dwarven brothers to be able to train them. And the Sons of the Fallen, who shout Baruch Khazad. I didn't realise that. The Sons of the Fallen are only available in the Misty Mountains, so from Gundabad down to Khazad-dûm and east along Dane's Halls as well. So again, you will likely have to either beat Erebor to the Misty Mountains to get them, or backstab your own brothers to train them. Sons of the Fallen have, as I've said in any video that they're in, apologies for repeating as I've said, I say that so much. Anyway, the Sons of the Fallen are contenders for the best unit in the game, so do try and get those if you can. So, as we line up, the overview then of the Dwarves of Ered Luin is that you do not get any cavalry, and you get very few archers. You are almost a pure melee faction, and you must use this to your advantage. You're going to focus almost solely on defensive battles. Your units are incredibly strong and adept at defending. They're not that good at attacking because dwarves are slower. And this is a physical trait. They have been set to be slower. Dwarves and orcs are the slowest walking units in the game, with dwarves having the title of slowest. So your army's not going to be able to chase anyone down, which is why your catapult is going to be very important. Grape shot to target enemies before they reach you, or to get enemies to attack you. And you're also going to want to put a lot into trying to get hold of travellers and Blue Mountain scouts, because these archers are the only way you're going to be able to goad the enemy into attacking you. And once the enemy does reach you, though, of course, your whole army, as I've said, is more than capable of defending itself. But as you can see with this Angmar army, they are just going to hold off. So I'll pause it, and then we'll have a little watch of all of our units attacking something. The Bronze Guard are in shield wall though, which is annoying. Those two units at the end run round the side. Take them off of that. Alright. So as you can see, well, you don't really have a point of reference, but you should be able to gather from the way the troops are running that they are very slow. So your units are never going to win any 100-meter sprint medals. So you've got to plan and target your enemies accordingly. I've played as Erebor a few times, but I've never played as Ered Luin. But the Dwarves of Erebor and Ered Luin follow very similar patterns. So it should be quite simple to get the hang of. Some of our warriors in battle there. The orcs almost double our height. Although the men of Ruidau should be taken down easily. Although there are forgers there. Forgers are our worst unit. The horn of the orcs blows as their army runs forth. Oh, look at the Bronze Guard doing a number. Keeping the enemy at bay nicely. And what of the orc hunters? Prepare to throw. Getting good hits on with the axes. Azagald's Tomb Protectors against some trolls. We have 60 men. Defeat apparently seems certain, which doesn't bode well for a unit which is what I've recently stated as perhaps our best unit. Hammers of Gundabad, Guards of Khazad-dûm, and Sons of the Fallen all holding their own on the edge there. It's just a mess of dwarves shouting, "Heavy infantry!" Alright, well, that's scan over there, and that is the Ered Luin campaign, and that's the Ered Luin faction overview. So I hope, as with all the others, that this has been an A, entertaining, and B, useful. Hope you've got some good little advice from it, some stats and features about your own units. The Ered Luin campaign is a fun one, but it is a slow one, so do bear that in mind. It may be it's certainly a faction that you could consider attacking everyone with. A war versus Linden would really put your skills to the test, as Linden will be a mighty challenge in the early game. So I would certainly suggest, if you want to jazz it up, play as bloodthirsty Ered Luin. Play as the same dwarves who slew the elves in the First Age just to get the Silmaril. So fight on, dear friends. But for now,
lies slain upon the battlefield.
Our general is dead, but that's always what happens when you choose your worst unit to be your general. But for now, that will conclude this video. So again, next week, stay tuned. There are only 4 of these left. Anduin, Run, Dunland. There are only 3 left, 4 including this one. Anduin, Run and Dunland. So I hope to do Run next week, then Dunland, then Anduin. I made you Dunland first, actually, just so that we don't do 2 Wildmen factions in one go. So do stay tuned for the remaining videos of this, and indeed for the Dorwinion and Umbar Let's Play continuations. But for now, dear friends, and until we speak again, Navaya Naden Pedimad Melunin, and farewell.